Wisconsin Eye's coverage of Campaign 2014 is being brought to you by the Wisconsin Hospital Association. For over 90 years, a valued voice supporting Wisconsin hospitals in communities like yours.
Wisconsin Eye coverage of the 2014 elections continues. We're interviewing State Senator John Lehman, a 16-year veteran of the Assembly and Senate. But John Lehman is a Democratic candidate for Lieutenant Governor this year. John, welcome back to Wisconsin Eye.
Hi, Steve. Thank you.
Well, you, 16 years in the ledge, you've chosen now to move up and run for Lieutenant Governor. Why?
Well, part of it is the 21st Senate District, where I won that recall in 2 years ago now. Has been radically redistricted. It's about a 58% Republican district. Very, very difficult to continue or have any kind of insurance from a Democrat continuing in the state Senate. And I'm going to be 69 in August. I thought, okay, I retired once, when I lost in 2010.
Yeah. Maybe
I'd just retire again. I kind of ran in the recall thinking that's what I would do, but then I met Mary Burke, and for the second time. I knew her as Secretary of Commerce, but sat down with her, talked about her platform that she'd be running on, the enthusiasm that she had, and started thinking about it. My wife and I had a very long talk, went on for about 3 weeks, and then, okay, you can devote another year of your life to politics and to a statewide campaign. So it's something I'd never done before. It's very, very interesting. And I think I can add to the value of that ticket and use my experience a little bit during the campaign. And if we're blessed to win, I know that I could help in a new administration.
A former classroom teacher, long time. Are you going to be advising her on K-12 issues? She's also a member of the Madison School Board. But your knowledge of Southeast Wisconsin politics, are those two roles you hope to play?
I certainly do. Most of my life was spent as a high school teacher before I went into the legislature, sort of later in a career than a lot of people. But have served as the chair of the Education Committee, served as caucus chair, served a couple terms on joint finance. So I think I provide some good background for her for any questions she might have of me in terms of moving forward, after November.
A lot has happened in K-12. The charter schools, the home schools, the virtual schools, the choice and charter debate. Compare K-12. How is K-12 doing now compared to when you started your career in the Assembly, John?
Well, I think there was, not a division into two systems, obviously. There was always a question about, are the resources there for the K-12 public schools, but it was more a matter of the funding formula. Are the resources there? Perhaps are less served groups getting the attention that they need. Special education funding was a long time debate, as you remember, especially high needs special education funding. Yeah. English is a second language, poor children, are the funds really there and the resources really there? That's where the debate was when I came in and was first elected. And now the debate is really over divided resources, moving resources into the private schools with a new tax policy for tuition and fee tax policy. So the debate is obviously spread in different directions. I think the debate has gotten to the point where now the expansion of voucher schools in that discussion is really a discussion from Speaker Voss, I know, has repeatedly said, I want statewide vouchers.
With no limits.
Without limit.
Right.
And basically the other side, I think, wants authorizers for charter schools almost without limit, But now we're at the point where we're not just authorizing the special treatment in Milwaukee or Racine. The debate is statewide, and a lot of those school districts, people are very satisfied with their schools, see no reason at all to take resources from those schools and direct them otherwise. So I think that the debate has sort of come to a wall here, and you saw that a little bit with Senator Ellis in the last session, I think, and the folks that he represents. So I don't think that this constant push, which is a national kind of a movement that's come to Racine, to Wisconsin, I don't think that you're going to see it roll quite as easily through the Republican side. I think you're starting to get some resistance from Senator Olson and others about statewide expansion of vouchers.
Well, vouchers only existed in Milwaukee for 17, 18 years. Then about 4 years ago, it was expanded to your city, Racine.
That's right.
Talk about the expansion in your city. How well has it worked, or has it not worked?
Well, I don't think that the citizens fully know, because it's not accountable in the same way that folks report to a school board, and it's a very public process. It certainly is involving a number of schools that are unknown. So, people are waiting to see. All of the data we've seen is that the students are not doing better. It's just that the funding is being dispersed in different directions. Mm-hmm. And I know that if you talk to school board members and trying to find the resources for the large majority of the children, there is not an excitement about this new second system.
So if you and Mary Burke are elected on November 4, and she comes to you, John, and says, as a former classroom teacher, what would you recommend I put in the budget on the issue of choice and voucher schools in the 2015-2017 budget? Your recommendation?
I would really like to see, obviously, no statewide expansion, but then a return of the voucher program to if we're going to have, I think it's somewhat accepted in the state of Wisconsin that we have this voucher program, mm-hmm. and you can't just turn off the lights on schools immediately. But any new authorization and a focus should be, in my estimation, on poor children. We started out with a very small program. Polly Williams was all excited about it in Milwaukee, yes. to give some options and choices to poor children. We don't have that anymore. If you look at the income levels, they're way beyond the average family income in the city of Racine, for example. So you're talking about really middle and upper middle class folks having access to a second system and getting that paid for out of limited resources. If we're going to have a voucher program in the long term, I'm talking 10, 20 years down the road, what really makes sense, I think, is to refocusing on options for poor children who don't have those kind of options. And I have argued both in the regular public schools and in other schools, if you're going to come up with these special programs and special funding, put the money where the need really is. There's a tremendous difference between achievement in affluent school districts and less affluent school districts. Refocus on the question of poverty and those very poor children coming into the schools, and I think we'd be much better off.
Would you keep it statewide, or would you dial it back just to these two large cities?
No, I think what we have is deep pockets of poverty in the state of Wisconsin, and focusing on those places where you have the inner cities, the very, very poor children, and other than that, work on strong educational resources in all systems. Yep. I mean, you got poor kids in every single school district, every single school probably in the state of Wisconsin. But in terms of the special vouchers or some other kind of program, my opinion is that the focus should be where there are these concentrated pockets of poverty.
So the poorest of the poor students, but in major cities like Madison, Green Bay, Wausau, Eau Claire, La Crosse, Janesville, Beloit?
Yeah.
They're there?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you see the role of lieutenant governor? You and I have seen a few of them, and some of them get along better with governors than others, but what's the role?
Right. How many lieutenant governors and lieutenant governors have I watched and served with, since 1996? But I had a long conversation with Barb Lawton a few months back about the role of the lieutenant governor, and she said, one of the things that really stuck with me, she said, it's a real good opportunity at public service. And if you look what Barb did with the arts and with, I think it was Main Street programs and various tasks that she was sort of assigned by the governor, there's a real option to strengthen the governor's message and his emphasis and be another person that can go places in the state where the governor can't, but also to take on projects that might also not get the same kind of attention. Anything in the education-related area, in the development of cities, I'd be happy to take on. I've said to a couple people, I think that our government probably doesn't give the time to faith-based initiatives that it does, and I'd be happy to serve as a liaison to those kinds of groups. But it really depends on what the governor wants to emphasize and where the lieutenant governor can fit in. I'm not running on a separate platform. I'm not trying to steer, for example, Mary Burke on various issues. I see it as definitely a secondary role where an experienced legislator might be able to step in and help.
Some lieutenant governors have asked to run state agencies. Is that tempting to you?
I don't think in this day and age we'll probably see that.
You don't?
No.
Okay. You would also then bring a knowledge of Southeast Wisconsin politics. Do you see yourself as a big asset, obviously, in Racine, Kenosha, and some of these other Southeast and city of Milwaukee?
Yeah. As I travel the state, it's very clear to me that I'm really well known in southeastern Wisconsin and not so well known elsewhere, but found a lot of friendly faces and a lot of really hardworking folks who love their communities all over the state of Wisconsin. But obviously, I've been door to door for decades in Racine County, have now represented Kenosha County, have many friends and acquaintances for years and years in Kenosha County. I feel that I'm a good friend to Tom Barrett and have campaigned with him and gotten to know Tom over the years, and many of the Milwaukee legislators that we worked with in the Senate caucus. So I feel especially positive and especially strong, I think, about southeastern Wisconsin.
Since your 21st district includes some part of Kenosha County, your position on the Kenosha Casino, John?
I have, as a legislator from that area, I have long supported the coming of the casino to Kenosha. I think that we need to think in terms of a little competition is not the worst thing in the world. The Republican opposition to the casino has always amazed me because they've always been on the side of, well, let's have some competition. But I believe that you could see thriving casinos elsewhere in the state as well as a new Kenosha casino. Lieutenant
governors can be used as to attack. What, in your opinion, is the worst policy decision Governor Walker has pushed through the legislature?
Well, I think that in terms of the misuse of power and the divisiveness overall is the worst thing that we've seen. To use a little budget adjustment bill and then call it a dropping of the bomb, the dividing and conquer strategy that he admits to is very, very negative. I also think that we've seen way too much special interest emphasis. If you look at Mr. Klein and Gogebic Taconite, if you look at the recent data that's come out of who's been getting WEDAC funds, campaign contributors, I think we have to open the government. We have to make it more responsive to all. We have to not jump when money is waved at us and move in those directions. I mean, we're obviously reminding people that Governor Walker made a promise of 250,000 jobs and way hasn't kept that promise. That his notion of using WEDAC and kind of a top-down tax policy approach just hasn't done it. We are 9th out of 10 in the Midwest, and so we're definitely every day campaigning on the jobs issue. Mary Burke has a very detailed jobs plan. She's got that Secretary of Commerce background. She's got the finance education and business experience. We really believe that coming in with a new administration would be much more positive, not only for the little guys and the folks that were campaigning on minimum wage for access to rights and collective bargaining, but also on the big folks. We think that our economic plan is much more, will be much more productive than what you've seen out of Scott Walker.
And you think the state of Wisconsin should accept the federal government offer to expand MA, don't you?
Yes, certainly. Yeah. We saw the worst thing is you had this group of whatever it is, 70,000 people or something. We still don't know exactly what's happened to all those folks, but the near poor, the folks that are above that 100% of poverty, the Republicans argue, well, we offered health care for everybody, 100% of poverty, you get Badger care. After that, you go on Obamacare. Well, it wasn't designed that way. The federal government had funds for those very low income, not below the poverty line people that Scott Walker has really been playing politics with. And to say we won't take the federal government money is sort of his goal. But I'm very concerned that we really haven't said, okay, what's the best way to really ensure that people have adequate health care, not just do a kind of a pro forma thing, but actually look at those folks and look at who has access to health care, who actually gets it. I think the Republicans admitted that what they were doing was not going to be real decent when they gave those extra dollars to Wisconsin hospitals. Mm-hmm. There was an admission that there were going to be a lot of people coming into emergency rooms without adequate health care. We, under Walker, have created that situation, and it's just a real injustice to people. And it takes the wrong view, in my estimation, on how you think about health care coverage. You want to make sure that just everybody's adequately covered, rather than pretending to cover folks and leaving a good number of people uncovered.
Let's go back to Act 10 for a minute. Some union leaders would like to completely repeal it and go back to the pre-Act 10 days. Is that possible, John, do you think?
Well, I know that both Mary Burke and I very much believe that if we have people sitting down at the table, we have a better situation than to just limiting folks' voices at the workplace. Whether or not health care benefits and retirement benefits should have a special treatment for public employees, aside from that right to get to the table with collective bargaining, is something I think still needs to be determined. We still have an ongoing discussion in terms of how wide those discussions at the table should be, mm-hmm. and if there are some items that should be excluded from them. I don't know if we know that yet, but we have a long ways to go to put people back at the table to give them collective bargaining rights, public employees.
Your teaching career was in Racine, and your political career also in Racine. Would you continue to live in Racine if you were elected, John?
I don't know where I should be as lieutenant governor and what's the best base. One of the things that I found out in this campaign is that Racine's really down in the corner of the state. Yeah. And if you're traveling all over the state, maybe you need a more centrally located base. Starting point. So, we haven't got to that point yet, but perhaps, I know I wouldn't sell my house in Racine, maybe an apartment in Madison for part of the week, or for the business days of the week, and then go back to Racine. I'm a real Racine boy. I love the community, the diversity of Racine, and the friends that I have there. So you're not going to really pull me out of Racine 100%.
But you've talked to Mary Burke enough to know that if you were both elected on November 4, you wouldn't have the same strained relationship as Lawton and Doyle?
No, I think one of the reasons that people find me an appealing candidate is because I have a long tradition of being able to get along with people. Okay. People I don't agree with, people on my side especially. You don't have a history of, John Lehman undercutting somebody on the Democrat side or whatever. I think I'm known as a little mellower, a little older person who's got that. And I don't have the political ambitions beyond lieutenant governor. Okay. I definitely would declare that I would serve 4 years, God willing, unlike Scott Walker. But I mean, I'm running for this 4-year term, but I'm not so sure about another 4-year term as lieutenant governor. I definitely have no interest in running for governor, 8 years down the road or something like that.
Well, Governor Lucey got a federal appointment. Governor Thompson did. So I've got to ask this: if you're a lieutenant governor, do you feel qualified to be governor if
Yes,
something happened to Governor Burke?
I feel much more qualified than Rebecca Clayfish. If you remember, she was not Governor Walker's first choice, and she's had a learning curve, and I'm sure she's learned a lot about state government. But I've been at this, for 16 years, and I've seen the inside and outside of a number of the departments and all of the public policy debates. I think I'm very well qualified to serve as governor if that unfortunate need happened.
Well, you mentioned the current lieutenant governor, Ms. Clayfish. What about her record? What has she done wrong?
I think she was pretty silent early on. I think, she didn't know as much as Brett Davis would have known if he had been the lieutenant governor candidate. But she was elected lieutenant governor, pretty silent. When you first heard about her, it was the incident down in Beloit, in a semi-public meeting, and talking to a group of business folks
on tax policy
and saying, what can we do to make you happier, rather than a big public presence all over the state. Now she's being used quite a bit by the Walker administration, which is kind of in campaign mode now, and you're seeing a little bit more of her. But I think she was pretty silent lieutenant governor for most of the 4 years.
And then finally, I want to give you a chance to comment on any differences between you and your primary opponent, Mary Jo Walters.
My opponent, I think, is relatively unknown and inexperienced. I offer the experience of having served both in local government and the Racine Common Council, long career in the public schools, as well as a long legislative career. So I think more people know what they're going to get than if they would vote for Mary Jo Walters in the Democratic primary on August 12th.
Thank you. State Senator John Lehman represents 21st District, but he's running for Lieutenant Governor. The primary is August 12th. John, thanks for stopping by Wisconsin. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.